The thought that crossed Marcus Deal's mind when he first saw Vera Colton approaching the Okafor family in the Hargrove Tower lobby was not, to his later embarrassment, stop her. It was, she probably has a point. He was standing 40 feet away at the building's coffee station, paper cup in hand, watching a woman in a blazer stride toward a young mother seated in one of the lobby's upholstered chairs, a mother who was clearly exhausted, one child asleep on her shoulder, another cross-legged on the floor between her feet drawing in a notebook, and his first instinct was to assume that Vera, who he recognized as the chair of the Hargrove Tower Residents Association, was handling some kind of building, matter that he didn't understand yet. He gave her the benefit of the doubt. He usually did. It was, as his older sister had told him many times over many years, practically a character flaw. Hargrove Tower was what the real estate listings called a mixed-use residential community. 12 floors of condos above a ground-floor commercial space that included a pharmacy, a coffee shop, and a hotel-branded extended-stay operation occupying the east wing of the lobby level. The lobby itself was genuinely shared space. Hotel guests, condo residents, pharmacy customers, and delivery workers all moved through it. The Residents Association governed the condo floors and held certain advisory rights over shared amenities, the fitness room, the rooftop terrace, the 2 resident lounges on floors 3 and 7. The lobby, the coffee station, the seating area, those were not governed by the HOA. They were managed by Hargrove Property Group, the building's overall operator, under a separate commercial lease. This was a distinction Vera Colton had never fully accepted. Marcus heard her before he fully processed what was happening. "Excuse me. This seating area is for residents and hotel guests. Are you a guest of the hotel?" Blessing Okafor looked up from her phone. The toddler on her shoulder stirred but didn't wake. The older girl, Amara, stopped drawing. "We're waiting," Blessing said. Her voice was quiet and measured, the voice of someone who had learned to be very careful in exactly these moments. "Waiting for whom?" Vera asked, and the question had edges on it that the words themselves didn't quite explain. "My brother," Blessing said. "He's a resident. He's coming down." Vera looked at the sleeping toddler, at the backpack on the floor, at Blessing's phone and the wrinkled sweater, and she made a calculation that was visible on her face before she spoke again. "I'll need you to wait in the hotel lobby section. This area is for residents." Marcus set down his coffee. The particular quality of "I'll need you to," not "could you," not "would you mind," is worth sitting with for a second. It's the grammar of someone who has decided they have authority before they've established whether they do. In situations like this one, that assumption travels fast and does a lot of damage before anyone thinks to question it. He walked over. Not quickly. He wasn't sure yet what he was walking into, and said, with the easy openness that was both his best quality and his recurring problem, "Hey, everything okay?" Vera turned. She clearly recognized him as a resident. "Mr. Deal, I was just explaining to this guest that the resident seating area—" "She's not a guest," Marcus said. "She's waiting for her brother, who lives here." He said it with more certainty than he actually had, because Blessing had said as much and he believed her, because he always believed people when they said things like that, because his sister was right and he really did trust too easily. Vera looked at him. "Do you know this family?" "I'm getting to," he said. It was the kind of answer that sounded more confident than it was. Vera did not leave. She stood at a slight remove while Marcus introduced himself to Blessing, learned that her brother was Kwame Okafor in Unit 9B, that she and the children had been traveling since 4 a.m. from a connecting flight, that Kwame was on his way down but had been held up by a work call, that Emmanuel had finally fallen asleep 20 minutes ago after screaming through most of the train ride from the airport. Amara, the 7-year-old, looked up at Marcus with the large, careful eyes of a child who has learned to read a room and offered, unprompted, "We're not doing anything wrong." "I know," Marcus said and meant it. Vera, apparently satisfied that Marcus had no actual authority to resolve this in any direction, went to find Douglas Kruma. "Quick note, this is a fictional, AI-assisted story made for education and entertainment. All names and characters are invented. Now back to the story. Here is where Marcus made the questionable decision that he would spend the next several days reconsidering. Instead of simply waiting, which would have been fine, Kwame was on his way. He told Blessing, with the cheerful confidence of someone who has never fully learned that cheerful confidence is not the same as being right. "Don't worry about her. She doesn't actually have any authority over this lobby. You're completely fine. He believed this. He was, as it turned out, correct. But he said it loud enough for the 2 hotel staff members at the front desk to hear, and within 3 minutes Douglas Kruma appeared from a back office with the expression of a man who had been interrupted mid-morning by something that was going to require documentation. Douglas looked at Vera. He looked at Marcus. He looked at Blessing and the children. He said, with careful professional neutrality, "Can I help sort out what's happening here?" Vera presented her position. The seating area adjacent to the coffee station had been informally designated for residents and hotel guests per a 2019 agreement between the Residents Association and Building Management, and this family did not appear to qualify under either category. Douglas looked at Vera for a long moment. Then he said, "Mrs. Colton, the 2019 memo was a request from the RA to management. It was never a formal designation. It was never posted. It was never ratified as policy. The lobby seating is open to anyone in the building." Vera's chin came forward. "That's not my understanding." "I know," Douglas said, "but it's the building's policy." This was the evidence, the first hook, the moment that changed the shape of everything that came before it. Because Vera then said something that she clearly believed was a reasonable escalation, but that landed in the lobby of a building with 2 hotel staff, 1 building manager, 1 condo resident, and a tired mother watching, as something else entirely. "I'd like this family removed from the premises until their host comes down to vouch for them." The words, "removed from the premises," bounced off the terrazzo floor and the glass elevator banks and settled into the room like something dropped from a height. Amara stopped drawing. Blessing's arm tightened around Emmanuel. Marcus opened his mouth and, for once in his life, closed it again without speaking. Douglas did not change his "Can I get the kids some water? We have juice boxes at the desk if the little one wakes up." Blessing said yes, and her voice was still measured and still careful, and Marcus, watching her, understood for the first time that her composure wasn't calm. It was armor. The quiet devastation arrived not in the argument, but in what happened after Douglas walked back to the desk. Vera stayed. She didn't confront anyone again. She simply stood 20 feet away, near the elevator bank, watching. Not doing anything. Just watching. And Amara, who was 7 years old and had spent the whole morning being very good on a very long trip, leaned over to her mother and said in the smallest voice, "Is she going to make us leave?" Blessing said, "No, baby." And Amara said, "Is it because we don't have enough money?" The lobby was quiet enough that Marcus heard it. He looked at the floor. He had no answer, not for a child, not for that question, not in a way that would make it better. Vera, to her credit or discredit depending on your vantage point, heard it too. Something moved across her face that wasn't her usual expression, not remorse exactly, but the flicker of a woman who has, for just a second, seen something clearly. It passed. She straightened her blazer and left through the side door. Kwame Okafor appeared from the elevator 4 minutes later. 29-year-old Nigerian-American man, broad-shouldered, out of breath, phone in his hand, apologizing before the elevator doors had finished opening, and the reunion was brief and loud, and Emmanuel woke up and immediately began crying, which is a natural tax on all reunions involving toddlers. Marcus shook Kwame's hand and explained what had happened, leaving out the part where his first instinct had been to give Vera the benefit of the doubt, emphasizing instead the part where Douglas had handled it correctly and thoroughly. Let us know in the comments which city you're watching from. If you're finding value in this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you've ever experienced a similar HOA or neighborhood situation, feel free to share your story in the comments. The community shift happened that evening, when Marcus got home and found an email in his inbox from the Hargrove Tower Residents Association listserv, sent by Vera, titled Lobby Usage and Safety Concerns, which described the morning's events without naming anyone but characterized the situation as an incident involving unauthorized use of resident amenity space by non-residents, and called for a formal meeting to clarify lobby access protocols. The email had been sent to all 84 condo units. By 9 p.m., Marcus had received 11 replies, not from people who agreed with Vera, but from people who had seen similar things and had not said anything. A woman on the 6th floor wrote that she had watched Vera tell a food delivery driver he was not permitted to wait in the lobby seating area. A man on the 11th floor said his parents, who were visiting from out of the country, had been asked by Vera to wait near the elevators rather than the seating area. 3 other residents reported variations of the same pattern, Vera, over a period of at least 2 years, informally enforcing a lobby access policy that did not exist, targeting people who did not appear to be residents. Then came the revelation, and it reframed everything. A woman named Carol Reyes, who had lived in Hargrove Tower for 9 years, sent Marcus a private message that changed his understanding of Vera entirely. She wrote that in 2014, before Vera lived in the building, Vera had rented an apartment in another mixed-use development and had filed a formal complaint against building management when her own family, visiting from out of state, waiting in the lobby, had been told by a property employee that they were not permitted to use the resident seating without a resident escort. The complaint had gone nowhere. Vera had fought it for 8 months, felt humiliated, and eventually moved. She had moved into a building where she could join the RA. She had spent 6 years enforcing, against strangers, the exact experience that had once been done to her. She had become the thing she hated, so completely that she had apparently forgotten she had ever hated it. Marcus sat with that for a while. He was not sure it changed what needed to happen next. But it changed, in the dry deadpan way that life tends to deliver its ironies, how he felt while it was happening. The unexpected ally no one had anticipated was Douglas Kruma. He had, without being asked, pulled the building's lobby access policy and the 2019 memo from Vera's RA, the one Vera had cited, and drafted a 1-page clarification document that laid out, in plain language, exactly what each governing body had authority over in the Hargrove Tower common areas. The HOA governed floors 2 through 12, the rooftop, and the resident lounges. The hotel operator governed the hotel wing. Hargrove Property Group governed everything else, including the lobby seating, the coffee station, and the atrium. The RA had no enforcement authority in any of those spaces. Douglas sent the document to the building manager, to the RA board, all 5 members, and to the hotel's parent company's regional compliance office, which was the part that turned out to matter most. Here is where the legal framework arrived inside the story rather than beside it. The regional compliance office, upon reviewing the document and the morning's events as Douglas had described them in his incident report, escalated the matter to their legal team. The Fair Housing Act prohibits discrimination in housing-related services on the basis of race, national origin, and familial status, that last category specifically protecting families with children under 18. A pattern of selectively denying lobby access to families who appeared non-white, non-resident, or out of place, documented over 2 years, now with multiple resident accounts on record, was not a matter of HOA governance. It was a potential fair housing matter. The hotel's parent company, facing brand risk that had nothing to do with how charming Hargrove Tower's rooftop terrace was, moved quickly. They contacted Hargrove Property Group. Hargrove Property Group contacted the RA board. Vera Colton resigned as RA chair 6 days later, in a letter that described her decision as in the best interest of the community. The RA board issued a formal clarification to all residents confirming that the lobby and all ground floor common areas were governed by building management, not the Residents Association, and that access to those areas was not subject to RA authority or enforcement. The hotel's parent company reached a private settlement with the Okafor family, the terms of which were not disclosed, but which Kwame described to Marcus in the elevator 3 weeks later with a small nod and the specific expression of a man who has been made more than whole. The financial consequence had arrived not through a lawsuit or a formal complaint filed by any resident, but through the quiet. Marcus, for his part, told his sister about all of it. She said, "You assumed Vera had a point when you first saw her." He said, "For about 4 seconds." She said, "That's 4 seconds." He said, "I know." She was not wrong. But 4 seconds of bad instinct followed by the willingness to walk across a lobby and ask what was happening was on balance